In the spring of 1942, just months after the attack on Pearl Harbor, America was still reeling. The Pacific was a Japanese stronghold, their empire expanding across the ocean. Morale in the United States was at an all-time low. But from this darkness, a bold idea emerged, one that would defy logic, stretch the limits of aviation, and send a message that America was far from defeated. The man behind the idea was Lieutenant Colonel James Harold Doolittle, a brilliant pilot, engineer, and fearless innovator. He envisioned a mission no one thought possible: to launch Army bombers from the deck of a Navy aircraft carrier, strike the Japanese homeland, and escape toward China. It had never been done before. The B-25 Mitchell bombers were far too large to take off from a carrier, and the crew would have no way to return. It was a one-way journey into the unknown. Yet Doolittle and his volunteers, 80 men in total, stepped forward without hesitation. They knew the odds. They went anyway. Training began in secret at Eglin Field, Florida. The crews practiced short takeoffs, emergency landings, and low-altitude flying, all under a veil of secrecy. Meanwhile, engineers modified the bombers, stripping out unnecessary weight and installing extra fuel tanks. The mission was code-named simply Special Aviation Project Number 1. In early April 1942, 16 B-25 bombers were loaded onto the USS Hornet and set sail from San Francisco. The crews crowded the deck, watching as the California coastline faded into the mist. They were told little, only that the target was Tokyo. Then came the morning of April 18, 1942. A cold wind swept across the Pacific. At 7:38 a.m., lookouts on the Hornet spotted a Japanese patrol vessel. The ship was quickly destroyed, but the alarm had already been raised. The Americans were still 650 miles from Japan, far beyond the planned launch point. The decision was immediate. Doolittle ordered the launch. If they turned back, the mission would fail. If they went forward, they might never return. Every man on deck knew what that meant. One by one, the massive bombers roared to life. The carrier pitched and rolled in the waves, its flight deck slick with seawater. Doolittle's plane went first. He pushed the throttles forward, racing down the impossibly short runway. For a moment, the bomber seemed to hang over the ocean, then lifted into the air. The crew on deck erupted in cheers. The rest followed, 16 in all, each carrying 4 bombs, each bound for Japan. For hours, they flew low across the Pacific, dodging clouds and enemy patrols. Then, through the haze, the coastline of Japan appeared. Tokyo lay ahead. Doolittle led the attack. Diving through anti-aircraft fire, he released his bombs over military and industrial targets. Explosions rippled through the city. Smoke filled the skies. It wasn't just Tokyo. Other crews struck Nagoya, Osaka, and Kobe. Factories, shipyards, and oil tanks were set ablaze. The raid caused relatively little physical damage, but its psychological impact was immense. For the first time in the war, Japan had been hit on its own soil. The myth of invincibility was shattered. When the bombers turned toward China, they faced a new enemy: fuel exhaustion. The early launch had doomed their range calculations. One by one, the aircraft began to run out of fuel over the East China Sea. Some crews bailed out into the night. Others crash-landed in the rough terrain of eastern China. Of the 16 bombers, 15 reached China. 1 landed in the Soviet Union, where its crew was interned. The rest faced brutal conditions: rain, darkness, and enemy soldiers searching for them. Chinese civilians risked their lives to rescue the Americans, hiding them from Japanese patrols. But Japan's retaliation was merciless. Entire Chinese villages suspected of helping the raiders were destroyed, and tens of thousands of civilians were killed. Back in America, Doolittle believed the mission had failed. His plane had crashed, his men were scattered, and none had returned safely. He expected to be court-martialed. Instead, when he finally made it home, he was greeted as a hero. President Roosevelt awarded him the Medal of Honor. The raid had done exactly what it was meant to: lift the morale of a wounded nation and strike fear into the heart of Japan. The Doolittle Raid was more than a military mission. It was a statement of defiance. It told the world that the United States would fight back, no matter the odds, no matter the cost. James Doolittle himself went on to lead air operations across Europe and the Pacific, rising to the rank of general. Yet, when asked about the raid years later, he simply said he was proud of his men, that they had done what needed to be done, when the world needed it most. The raid was small in scale, but vast in meaning. It was the spark that reignited hope. Proof that even in the darkest hours of war can change history. That's it for today's mission, soldiers. If you enjoyed this debriefing, hit that subscribe button before I throw my banana at it. I'll see you in the next one. This is Monkey at War, signing off.